Welcome to this new Flight Simulator update movie. In this movie, we're going to look at what has changed in the sim update number 13 already. And that's the beta version. So don't expect it's the official version. It still is in beta, right? So the first beta has been released yesterday. It bumps up the version to version 1.34.10.0. As always, there's a recommendation here to move things out of the community folder to see if it's, say, working perfectly and then move them in. But I think we all know that you'll probably do it, I would say, the other way around, right? So you will do it first with the items in the community folder, and if you experience issues, then move them out. So first of all, the general bug fixes. So there's a fix for the active pulse, where now the aircraft velocity and angular velocity are also frozen. That didn't happen in the pulse. Also, they added the logbook compression to fix an issue where the logbook stopped recording flights after reaching 16 megabytes. Well, that's cool. And another one is the fixed scenery, where a white dot and white outline could appear when using a yoke. That was, I would say, observed by a lot of players, right? It was also, I would say, observed prior to the first, prior to this update, and was also reported, but they didn't fix it. Now it should be fixed in this new sim update, which is in beta. So in the menu, they made some changes. You can now search the airport if they've got special characters. That wasn't possible. And they fixed the menu where the Top Gun Maverick downloadable content was extending the boundaries, right? It was a major picture. Then from accessibility perspective, the screen reader now works correctly. It will now narrate the highlight option with pop-up dialog prompts such as OK, cancel, save, etc. And the D-pad and keypad navigation within the UI menus will no longer jump unexpectedly to the social panel or tooltips when you reach the final item. Logbook can now also be navigated using the D-pad or the keyboard, as well as they updated the tooltip to better explain how to adjust the slider or cyclic options using the gamepad or keyboard. So some nice things. Then, if we're looking at the install thing, there was an issue. Say if you are not part of the beta, you still have the issue. But be careful with deleting content from the Xbox if you're also playing it on the PC, because there is a bug currently active which deletes also the content on your PC version. So be aware of that. For online, they fixed the bug where the user would not join a group after accepting an invitation to the platform, and they fixed the bug where the light SimVar were not properly replicated. And those SimVars are, I would say, really important, especially if you're using third-party products. From navigation purposes, of course, there's the update for the AirAC cycle 2308, which has been released. And there are two bugs. One of them is a bug where airplanes didn't slow down enough to turn while taxiing. And the other one was if you would perform a go-around, or at least the traffic would perform a go-around, and then they would go in circles forever. Then continuing with the glass cockpits, there are a lot of changes there, right? So they added support for displaying the wind vector on the navigation map, nearest map, and the weather map panes. They enable user control of weather radar gain via the GTC weather radar settings page. So if you go to the settings page, then you can make some adjustments there. And they adjusted the map and the SVT absolute terrain colors to more closely match the real unit. There also were a few fixes. First of all, there was the bug fix with the nav data bar ISA field, once displaying the ISA temperature instead of the delta ISA. And here's another fix, right, where they displayed an issue, or they fixed an issue where the autopilot would be inaccurate when flying in external camera view. Other than that, there's the small fix for the FMS, especially for the max speed, but that's a huge, I would say, huge effect. As well as they attempted to activate the weather radar while on the ground, will now show a confirmation dialog, right? Normally you shouldn't activate it on the ground, if I'm correct. But now I would say, if you do it, they will ask you for confirmation. What's other in the list? They made some fixes to some displays, and they added the ADF frequencies below 200 kilohertz down to 190 are now tunable. So that's cool. So in the G1000 NXI, they also made some changes. And what you always see is that there's, I would say, slightly a correlation, right? So almost all the fixes which are in the Garmin G3000 and G5000 are also, I'd say, partially on the G1000 NXI, right? The adjusted map. They fixed the bug and the tunable autopilot for lock interception behavior to reduce the overshoot in most scenarios. Only this one is unique for the G1000 NXI. Oh no, it's still here, right? So there's no unique change in this. There are even more changes in the G3000 compared to the G1000. So looks promising. Then the aircraft. So general, there were some fixes where the fuel system that could cause it not to use any fuel. Well, that's interesting. And they corrected an issue with some P51s to run out of fuel early in Reno races. So if you were running the Reno races with a P51, that's now fixed. As well as they fixed the camera freeze with joystick top hat. Then the external HUD, they made changes to the analogic style external HUD. Now displays up to 16 tachometers. So that's cool. Then jumping to the biggest section, which is the Boeing 787 as well as the 747. So they did add a lot of functionality. And I think the most important one or the most wanted one is the Simbrief integration. That's now being added, right? So you can now use Simbrief directly into the 787 and 747 from Asobo. That's really cool. So you can now add the route request functionality backed by Simbrief. They added the wind uplink functionality also backed by Simbrief. So all kind of cool things. Also, they made some changes to the cruise climb and cruise destination pages styles to the cruise page when in those regimes. They add some cruise climb related functionality to the perf init cruise, proc and lags pages, the max angle speed field to the climb page. So a lot of changes over there and a lot of new functionality for this aircraft, right? So I will not go to each item individually, but I would say while I'm scrolling slowly, you can see that it really is amazing. Then there are some specific fixes for or additions for the 747 as well as for the 787, right? So they're marked like this. Especially the insufficient fuel warning that's added to both, but both, of course, work differently. So that's what's being added. So that's all new functionality, right? This whole long list, which I'm now selecting, is all new functionality, which is added to the Dreamliner 747, 78710, as well as the 747 Intercontinental. Now, continuing with the list of fixes, because there are also a lot of fixes, right? So all of them are, I would say, or most of them are likely reported by, I would say, one of the simmers, but that's cool. So, first of all, a lot of fixes for the autopilot, right? The tuned localizer in sub behavior to reduce the overshoot. They announced the FAC can always capture when close to the beam, and they fixed an issue where the autopilot would be inaccurate when flying in external camera view. I would say some of them, we've seen them earlier with the G3000 and G5000 as well as the G1000. So likely they're reusing some code, which is, I would say, pretty smart, right? Last one is the MCP window now opens with the current speed when changing the VNAV to another vertical mode. Then continuing with the CDUs, that's also, let's say, a very long section, right? It's this complete section where they fix some issues, where the where there was an issue with the fix or info ETA or altitude prediction could not be deleted. The nav page, nav radio page course value is now green instead of white. They fixed some page links which were not working. They also fixed the blanked version of the VNAV pages. They fixed an issue where the assumed temperature on the takeoff ref did not set the thrust mode appropriately. And several other nice things which they have added, or at least fixed, I should say, because we're in the fix section, right? So a lot of long list of items being fixed in the CDU. Then the controls, there was an issue with engaging the reverse throttle via the toggle control input should now work more reliable, right? There's a toggle button that simply is a button on your joystick which you press and then it will go into reverse mode. That didn't work. I would say 100% reliable. That's now being fixed. Then the ICAS, they added the TCAS off advisory message as well as to fix multiple bugs in the auto brake ICAS alerts. As well as they made a change to the flight model, slightly increase of braking efficiency. Continuing with the FMC, right? So the FMC again is crazy, right? There are so many fixes. I will select a few of them. The rollout of flare modes now disarm disengage when the autopilot is disengaged. That didn't happen prior to this update. They corrected approach mode, engagement, disengagement logic. They fixed A-beam points are now deleted when passed. The initializer cruise descent restriction and transition speed limits are deleted if the new cruise altitude is lower than their corresponding ones, and several other nice ones. Uh, Also, this one is also pretty interesting. They fixed the bug where the approach phase would not activate with flaps 1. Then the FMS, the long latitude where value is 000 now works, as well as the MCP. They corrected the log fac and app light logic. The ND, they updated the VOR and app modes, the DME cruise frequency identifier to show correct VOR values for the VOR R and FOND, and show correct ILS values when in the app or app CTR mode, as well as the PFD and the VNAV speed band is now not shown during approach phase. Last one is for systems. They fixed issue where the trust calculations that could lead to errors CLB 1 and 2 values. Then a lot of fix for the VNAV, right? We know that there were a lot of, I'd say, enhancements for the VNAV functionality. So that's now being updated, right? That was part of the AAU number 2, where they added tons of stuff also to these aircraft. They made some fix for the VNAV, which didn't work correctly in some scenarios. Then specifically for the 747, there's a whole list of items. Mainly the tooltips and systems received updates and some smaller updates into the other sections. I say smaller updates. I'm not referring to the update itself, but really I would say as only single items. While in the bottom we can see a little bit more fixed, although the CDU also has 2 fixes, as you can see. Not going to go to the whole list, but I would say pretty impressive. For the 787, it's, well, not 100% the same, right? The CDU received a lot of updates. The FPW received updates. The PFD received updates. And that's where you see it, right? So a lot of, I would say, corrections, small fixes, which could have, I would say, a big impact, of course. So really nice. Then the Cessna 208B Grand Caravan, they fixed the radio panel and ADF interactions. So one fix for that aircraft. The Cessna Citation CG4 and the WT21, they also made some changes to the FMC. So new user settings menu now found on the index page. That's a new page where you can set the, I would say, user settings, as well as they added the route request feature that allows you to uplink a route from Simbrief. That's cool. Ground power can now be toggled on or off and available via the user setting menu, right? So you need to enable it. As well as the passenger cabin lights also via the user setting. So we will have a look in a later video how that works. In addition to that, the FMC received an update with a fix info where you can look at specific fix and then get the accurate information about that fix, as well as a fixed an issue where the red AP disconnect invitation would flicker. That's so say to warn you that the AP has been say disconnected, right? The chiming of the seatbelt and safety chimes not always work. That's fixed, and they tune the autopilot VOR lock intercept behavior to reduce overshoot in most scenarios. That's also what I experienced lately. So a lot of cool things there. So continuing with the Cessna citation longitude, also several fixes. Fixes with the throttle, fixes with the weather radar, adjust the power draw on of the weather radar, pressing the heading knob while heading mode is active will now cause the selected heading to automatically sync with the aircraft heading until the airplane stops turning or the heading knob is manually turned. That's cool. And also pressing the heading knob while on the autopilot flight director nav mode is active. I will not toggle the heading sync, right? That's how it normally should work. But when you press the button, it didn't, I'll say, sync the heading, but that now works. Last one, fixed an issue for a short period after closing a pop-up opened from the GTC CNS bar. It was impossible to interact with anything. So simply a freeze. Then they are TVM 930, the autopilot. There's now a limit to which you can set for the airspeed, as well as the weather radar will now fill if power is removed from bus number 2, and they adjust the power draw of the weather radar. And pressing the header knob will now also cause the selected to sync, right? So there's again, I would say, a correlation between the fixes which they made for the Cessna citation longitude as well as for the TBO 930. Then the last aircraft, they fixed the ping textures or some on some instruments in the external view. That's for the DAC 10001. Continuing the list with the peripherals, they added support for the Honeycomb Alpha Flight Controls Pro on the PC and Xbox, as well as a new preset, right? Those are the presets which you can select in the menu for the Thrustmaster Airbus Quadrant. And they fixed the yoke value of the suspend MFS on Xbox, right? That didn't work correctly. For those who are using VFR or VR functionality, virtual reality functionality, uh, correct an issue that could cause the yoke commands not to work properly. And they also fixed an issue where the instruments to be dropped when a player hovered a glass cockpit supporting click interactions. Then tons of stuff for the dev functionality, but as always, we're not going over them, as well as SimConnect. I would say based on those SimConnect things, it looks like they're gonna improve something with the Jetway API, right? Which is the, I would say, Jetway which you can connect to the aircraft that has now been improved, as well as several things which they fixed in the SimVars. So likely we will see some better improvements for the, I would say, third-party tools which are using those functionalities. There's one known issue. They say that the while the white dot issue was fixed for most scenarios, there's a scenario in which they still can happen. So it looks like that they didn't fix it 100%, but at least they fixed it partially. So a pretty long list. But before I would say ending this video, want to make you aware about this. So Asobo mentioned that they made an error with the beta package, that they didn't include the fixes for the 747 and 787. So what you need to do is you need to install the new packages for these aircrafts. I would say after the beta is updated, right? So they say, hey, the new package for these planes will be available as a mandatory download upon launching MFS later today. So simply, I would say start Flight Simulator and they will be installed on your machine. So here ends this video where we looked at the release notes of the beta version of Sim update number 13 already, which bumps up to version 2, version 1.34.10.0. Keep an eye on my channel because we're going to look at some of those beta functionalities to see how they work. So you can already have a sneak peek on what you can expect once Sim update number 13 is available. Here is this video. I hope you liked it. If you liked it, then consider to use the like button. If you've got questions or comments, then feel free to post them in the comment box below. And if you want to stay up to date about new videos I'm posting, then make sure that you're subscribing to my channel. Thanks for watching and see you next time.